In 1453, a once great empire met its tragic end. The Byzantine Empire, the continuation of the Roman Empire in the East, had stood for over 1,000 years, but in a single day it crumbled under the weight of siege engines and relentless assaults. This was no ordinary battle. It was the final chapter of a civilization that had survived the fall of Rome, the rise of Islam, and centuries of territorial wars. The conquest of Constantinople, the Byzantine capital, marked not just the end of an empire, but the dawn of a new era, where the power shifted from east to west. The Byzantine Empire had been in decline for centuries. By the mid-15th century, it was a mere shadow of its former self. The empire had been fragmented by internal strife, territorial losses, and external threats. The once mighty cities and provinces of the Byzantine world had fallen to the Ottoman Turks, and Constantinople, though still a symbol of Byzantine glory, was now surrounded by enemies. The Ottomans, led by the young Sultan Mehmed II, had already captured most of the surrounding territories and now had their sights set on the heart of the Byzantine Empire. The city itself was an architectural marvel, a fortress on the edge of Europe, protected by massive walls and centuries of tradition. But the Byzantines were heavily outnumbered. The imperial army had dwindled to a small, dedicated force of soldiers, and the once flourishing empire had become economically strained. Emperor Constantine XI Palaeologus, the last Byzantine emperor, understood the severity of the situation. Desperate, he appealed to Western Europe for aid, but the response was lukewarm at best. The Catholic West had long been distrustful of the Orthodox Byzantine Empire, and despite a few promises, little support materialized. Sultan Mehmed II, however, was determined. A brilliant strategist and military commander, he was fully aware of the importance of Constantinople. Not only did the city sit at the crossroads of Europe and Asia, but it also held immense symbolic value as the last remnant of the Roman Empire. For Mehmed, its conquest would be the ultimate achievement, but it was not going to be easy. In the spring of 1453, the Ottoman forces, numbering around 80,000, gathered outside the gates of Constantinople. They brought with them a terrifying array of siege weapons, including massive cannons capable of battering down the city's formidable walls. These were no ordinary cannons. The largest, a massive siege cannon known as the Basilica, weighed 600 tons and was capable of firing stone balls weighing over half a ton. It had been built by a Hungarian engineer named Orban, who had been hired by the Ottomans to craft this colossal weapon. The city's defenders, numbering only around 7,000, were vastly outmatched. Despite their disadvantage, the Byzantines made a valiant stand, bolstered by a small group of foreign mercenaries and the promise of support from the West. But as the siege continued, it became apparent that help would not arrive in time. The Byzantine forces held their ground for weeks, repelling the Ottoman assaults as best they could, but the sheer weight of the Ottoman siege was overwhelming. Mehmed II understood that a protracted siege would not only wear down the defenders, but also demoralize them. On May 22, 1453, he ordered a final all-out assault on the city. The Ottomans launched wave after wave of attacks, attempting to breach the city's formidable walls. But the Byzantines, despite their small numbers, fought fiercely, with Emperor Constantine XI even taking to the front lines in a final act of courage. But as the days wore on, the Ottoman forces began to make progress. The massive cannons, aided by other siege tactics, began to breach the city's walls. On the evening of May 28, 1453, the gates of Constantinople were breached, and the Ottomans poured into the city. The defenders fought fiercely, but the odds were now insurmountable. In the final moments of the battle, Emperor Constantine XI is said to have thrown off his royal regalia and fought alongside his soldiers in the streets. As the city fell, Mehmed II's forces unleashed a brutal sack of Constantinople. Churches were looted, buildings burned, and thousands of civilians were killed or enslaved. The Hagia Sophia, the grandest cathedral of the Christian world, was converted into a mosque. The fall of Constantinople not only sealed the fate of the Byzantine Empire, but also signaled the end of Christian rule in the Eastern Mediterranean. For the Ottomans, the conquest of Constantinople was a monumental victory. It marked the end of their century-long struggle to control the city, and it paved the way for their eventual dominance over much of southeastern Europe, the Middle East, and North Africa. Sultan Mehmed II was hailed as the conqueror, and the city was renamed Istanbul, a name that would become synonymous with Ottoman power. But the consequences of the fall of Constantinople reached far beyond the immediate political landscape. The loss of the city meant the collapse of the Byzantine Empire's vast cultural and intellectual heritage. Many scholars fleeing the Ottomans sought refuge in the West, bringing with them invaluable manuscripts and knowledge that would help spark the Renaissance. In many ways, the fall of Constantinople was the bridge between the medieval world and the dawn of the modern age. The Ottoman Empire, now firmly in control of Constantinople, would go on to rule for centuries, becoming one of the most powerful empires in history. But the fall of Constantinople also marked the beginning of the end of the medieval order. The once great Byzantine Empire had vanished, leaving behind only ruins, memories, and a legacy of resilience. Its demise had far-reaching consequences, changing the course of history and reshaping the world in ways that would be felt for centuries to come. The battle that ended the Byzantine Empire was indeed one of the most significant military encounters in history, for it marked the demise of an empire that had preserved the essence of Roman civilization. It also marked the dawn of the Ottoman Empire as a global power and set the stage for the emergence of the modern world. The battle's long-lasting effects continue to be felt in the cultural and political dynamics of the region to this day.